Maya Jackson adjusted her chemistry textbook as she entered the crowded lecture hall at Westbridge University. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the faces of freshmen already seated throughout the auditorium. She was 10 minutes early, as always, but the look she received from a group of juniors made her feel like she'd arrived uninvited to a private party. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Great, the scholarship kid's here, muttered Brad Thompson under his breath, not quite low enough for Maya to miss. A few chuckles rippled through the room. Maya had been at Westbridge for only 3 months, one of only 5 students from her small rural town to receive the prestigious Westbridge National Merit Scholarship in the university's 100-year history. She'd never attended a private school once, not by choice, but by circumstance. Her role at Westbridge was strictly academic, maintaining her perfect 4.0 GPA while juggling 3 part-time jobs to cover what her scholarship didn't. It wasn't the college experience she'd originally envisioned for herself. Growing up in Pine Creek, Arizona, Maya had dreamed of becoming an aerospace engineer like her mother, Dr. Sophia Jackson, who had served with distinction in the Air Force. Before joining NASA, she'd spent countless weekends at local aviation museums with her mom, learning to identify different aircraft, calculate flight patterns, and understand avionics systems. Her natural talent was undeniable. She could identify helicopters by sound alone at distances that impressed even veteran pilots. But everything changed when her younger sister Olivia was diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia at 16, eager to follow in their mother's scientific footsteps. 3 months into Olivia's second round of treatment, the family's insurance denied further coverage, shattering the Jackson family's financial stability and their faith in the healthcare system. Maya watched her parents drain their retirement savings, sell their home, and move into a small apartment. She saw her father cry himself to sleep night after night and made a decision that would haunt her for years to come. She abandoned her dream of attending the Air Force Academy and applied for civilian scholarships instead. It was a compromise that let her pursue education without leaving her family during their darkest hour. Now sitting in this lecture hall surrounded by privileged students who questioned her presence, Maya wondered if she'd made the right choice. Professor Nathan Caldwell entered the room, his leather briefcase slapping against the podium with precision. "Listen up," Caldwell announced, his voice cutting through the casual conversation. "We've got a special assignment this semester. Working directly with the Aerospace Engineering Department on drone propulsion systems." This was exciting news, exactly why Maya had chosen Westbridge despite its elitist reputation. The university's connections to major defense contractors and aerospace companies were unparalleled. Maya opened her notebook and began taking detailed notes, preparing for what could be her pathway to eventually helping her family financially. "Sir," interrupted Brad Thompson, glancing pointedly at Maya, "are we really bringing the scholarship students into this project? If things go sideways with the prototypes..." Professor Caldwell cut him off with a stern look. "Merit earned. Ms. Jackson, her place here, Thompson. Her preliminary designs were the most innovative in the freshman class. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story." Maya felt the familiar sting of being discussed like she wasn't in the room. She'd trained for months to keep up with students from prestigious prep schools, despite her rural public education. Her technical skills were excellent, her theoretical knowledge unquestionable, but the whispers followed her everywhere. "What's a scholarship kid doing in the advanced program?" She'd overheard countless times. After class, Maya packed her materials methodically. Along with her textbooks, she carried research journals, scientific calculators, and detailed schematics she'd been developing since high school. She'd learned to be prepared for anything. The university's competitive environment was unforgiving, and equipment failure could compromise an entire semester's work. That evening in the dining hall, the teasing started early. Brad Thompson and his friends occupied the table next to hers, their voices carrying clearly across the dining area. "Hey Jackson," Thompson called out. "If we get attacked by enemy drones, are you going to fight them off with your calculator?" The table erupted in laughter. Maya continued eating her dinner in silence, but her jaw tightened imperceptibly. She'd heard variations of this joke hundreds of times since arriving at Westbridge. The privileged students didn't understand what it meant to be here on merit alone, without family connections or generational wealth paving the way. "Maybe she can blind them with her scholarship certificate," added Chelsea Morgan, earning another round of chuckles. Maya stood quietly, cleared her tray, and walked back to her dormitory. But instead of going to bed, she did something that would have surprised her tormentors. She opened her laptop and carefully removed a custom external hard drive she'd found in the engineering department's disposal bin weeks earlier. Working by lamplight, Maya experimented with modifying the dormitory's Wi-Fi antenna, studying the radio frequency patterns and signal strength. Her father's training kicked in automatically. She tested the stability, checked the encryption, and adjusted the configuration until everything felt natural in her hands. The muscle memory was still there after all these years. Her mother had taught her the principles of signals intelligence from a young age. Understanding wavelengths, penetrating interference, and decoding transmissions were skills Maya had never forgotten. Outside her window, the campus stretched into the distance, shrouded in mist and uncertainty. None of her classmates knew that within days, the very person they considered a burden would become their salvation. None of them suspected that behind Maya's quiet demeanor and scholarship status lay skills that could mean the difference between life and death. As she carefully disassembled her improvised setup and returned everything to its proper place, Maya whispered a prayer she'd learned from her mother. "Grant me the strength to do what's necessary and the wisdom to know when that moment comes." Tomorrow they would begin their journey into the aerospace engineering project. Maya would carry her textbooks, her determination, and a secret that even she didn't fully understand yet, that sometimes the most important calculations aren't solved on paper. The engineering lab opened at 0800 hours, a lineup of eager students disappearing into the pre-dawn darkness. Maya sat in the back of the third study group, her materials secured around her feet, listening to the students' conversations over the hum of the ventilation system. "I still don't get why they're letting freshmen work on this," Marcus Jang said, nodding toward Maya. "If the military applications are as significant as Professor Caldwell implied, this should be graduate level work only." Samantha Davis, the team's programming specialist, shrugged. "Orders are orders. Just keep her away from the sensitive systems." Maya adjusted her headset and began recording the pre-project briefing, capturing the students' faces as they prepared for what could be their most important assignment yet. Through her viewfinder, she studied their expressions, noting the subtle signs of excitement and determination. The convoy of students climbed steadily toward the university's remote research facility, navigating switchback roads that hugged the edges of the canyon outside campus. Maya had reviewed the facility specifications extensively. They were heading into terrain that favored defenders, where a small force could hold off a much larger one if they knew the ground. During their first rest stop, Professor Caldwell gathered the team around a portable display covered with schematics and research parameters. "Our objective is to develop more efficient propulsion systems for next-generation unmanned aerial vehicles," he said, pointing to a series of marked positions. "The military applications are obvious, but the civilian potential is equally significant." Maya knelt beside the group, her notebook ready to document the briefing. As Caldwell detailed their approach and contingency plans, She noticed something in the schematics that the others had missed. The propulsion systems weren't simply incremental improvements on existing technology. They represented a quantum leap in capability that suggested classified military research. "Professor," Maya said quietly, "may I see the power consumption?" "Metrics again?" Caldwell paused, surprised by her interruption. He handed her the technical specifications, and Maya studied them through her calculator's analytical function. "These efficiency ratings," she said, tracing patterns with her finger, "they're far beyond anything commercially available. This isn't just improved technology, it's revolutionary." The students exchanged glances. It was the first time Maya had offered technical insight, and they weren't sure how to respond. Professor Caldwell leaned over to examine her calculations. "She's right," he said after a moment. "These specifications indicate a completely new approach to energy storage and distribution. Good catch, Jackson." As they resumed their journey, Maya noticed a subtle shift in how some of the students looked at her. She wasn't just the scholarship kid anymore. She was someone who might actually contribute to their project's success. The terrain grew more challenging as they approached the research facility. Security checkpoints appeared without warning, and armed guards verified their credentials with military precision. Maya kept pace without complaint, her academic conditioning holding up despite the unusual circumstances. She'd spent months preparing for the rigorous demands of Westbridge's engineering program. That evening, as they established their workstations in the research facility, Maya was adjusting her computer's orientation according to signal strength when Professor Caldwell approached her. "Why are you factoring in electromagnetic shielding for a simple propulsion project?" he asked, genuinely curious. Maya looked up from her equipment. "Signal interference can corrupt test data by 0.3% at these elevations. My mother taught me that principle when I was calculating flight paths for model aircraft." Caldwell fell silent for a moment. Then, against his better judgment, he gestured toward Brad Thompson's experimental drone prototype propped against a nearby workbench. "Show me," he said simply. Maya hesitated. She hadn't touched advanced aerospace equipment in 3 years. Not since she'd made her promise to focus exclusively on academics. But something in Caldwell's tone suggested this wasn't really a request. She accepted the prototype, feeling its familiar weight in her hands. The muscle memory was immediate and overwhelming. Her mother's voice echoing in her mind. The smell of jet fuel and desert sand. Childhood weekends at the Air Force Base watching test flights. The joy of understanding complex systems that most adults couldn't comprehend. Maya ran a diagnostic on the prototype's communication systems, her fingers moving with practiced precision. She identified interference patterns by observing signal degradation, adjusted for the facility's unique electromagnetic environment, and reconfigured the drone's transmitter to compensate for the canyon's natural disruption patterns. The prototype's response indicators jumped from 87% reliability to 99.3%. Several students had witnessed the adjustment, and word spread quickly through the research team. "She has the ability," Brad whispered to his friend. "But she's just a freshman. Scholarship student." Maya handed the prototype back to Professor Caldwell, her hands trembling slightly. She'd broken her own rules, violated the boundaries she'd established to focus exclusively on academic achievement rather than practical applications. "Jackson," Caldwell said quietly as the others moved away, "most people don't realize that aerospace engineering and signal processing use similar principles." Maya nodded, unable to trust her voice. "What made you choose a theoretical track instead of hands-on development?" he continued, genuinely curious. Maya's expression darkened. "My sister wanted to follow in our mother's scientific footsteps. She enrolled in pre-med as soon as she turned 17. She paused, adjusting a setting on her computer. Leukemia took her dream during her first semester. My parents couldn't handle losing another child to an ambitious career path. I chose the safer academic route so I could still serve without breaking their hearts further. Caldwell nodded, with understanding. Many students carried similar stories, dreams deferred by family tragedy or personal loss. As night fell on their fourth day in the research facility, Maya reviewed the data she had compiled. The propulsion systems they were developing showed promising efficiency improvements, but something about the project parameters still troubled her. The team's radio crackled with weather updates. A storm system was approaching, which would provide cover for their testing phase, but also increase the difficulty of their work. Maya checked her equipment's weather seals and prepared additional protective measures. Tomorrow would test every principle her mother had taught her, every theory she had learned, and every instinct she had inherited. The research team reached their primary testing location on the fifth day, establishing secure workstations along a rocky ridge that overlooked the canyon testing range. Maya set up her monitoring equipment in a natural blind, her computer analysis, providing clear data on the experimental drone's performance as they conducted initial flight tests. For the first 12 hours, everything proceeded according to plan. Maya documented system performance, power consumption, and flight stability while the engineering students maintained security and communication protocols. Her analysis was exactly what the research team needed to understand propulsion capabilities and limitations, but something felt wrong. "Professor," Maya whispered, stepping away from her monitoring station. "Look at Sector 7 through your binoculars." The professor adjusted his position and peered through his optics at the canyon wall opposite their location. After a long moment, he lowered the binoculars. "I see it. Looks like an unauthorized observation point that wasn't in our security briefing." Maya had spotted the concealed position while adjusting her monitoring algorithms to track a particularly erratic test flight. Someone had established surveillance on their research facility, and from its positioning, it commanded a clear view of their entire operation. "Professor," Brad called softly, "we might have a problem." Caldwell crawled over to their position and studied the canyon through his binoculars. What he saw made his blood run cold. The observation point wasn't just watching their tests. It was tracking their movements. "How long has that position been active?" Caldwell asked. Maya checked her recorded data, reviewing hours of background sensor readings in fast-forward mode. "Sir, I've got unusual electromagnetic signatures for the past 6 hours. But look at this." She showed him a sequence where barely detectable. Signals moved between concealed positions throughout the canyon. They're not just watching, they're coordinating. The terrible realization hit them simultaneously. The research team hadn't just been discovered by random observers. They had been deliberately targeted. The propulsion technology they were developing was more valuable than they had been told, and someone was determined to acquire it. "All teams," Caldwell whispered into his radio, "prepare for immediate evacuation. We're compromised." But as the students began gathering their equipment, Maya's sensors detected movement in multiple sectors simultaneously. Unknown forces were closing in from 3 directions, cutting off every escape route they had planned. "Professor," Maya sighed, her voice steady despite the growing dread. "We're not just compromised, we're surrounded." The assault began at 2,200 hours with a coordinated attack that demonstrated military precision. The unmistakable sound of helicopter rotors echoed through the canyon as 3 Apache gunships rose from concealed positions, their weapon systems locked onto the research facility. 2 students were injured in the initial moments. Brad Thompson took a grazing wound to the shoulder when debris scattered from a warning shot, while Chelsea Morgan was knocked unconscious by the concussive force of the helicopter's approach. Her experimental drone prototype lay abandoned beside her as teammates dragged both injured students to cover behind a cluster of concrete barriers. "Take cover," Professor Caldwell shouted, directing students toward the facility's reinforced sections while activating the emergency protocols. Maya had been separated from the main group while following an alternate route to get better monitoring angles of the test flights. Now she found herself alone on the highest ridge of the canyon, with a clear view of the entire scene unfolding beneath her. Through her computer screen, she watched in horror as her classmates were systematically pinned down by the Apache gunships, which maintained a hovering pattern that prevented any escape from the research facility. The coordinated nature of the attack suggested these weren't random mercenaries. They were operating with military precision and advanced equipment. But then Maya spotted something that made her heart skip a beat. A fourth helicopter was moving through the shadows along the ridgeline, approaching from the facility's blind spot. This one was different, a Black Hawk transport helicopter, carrying what appeared to be a strike team equipped with tactical gear. They were approximately 300 meters from her trapped colleagues. Maya tracked their movement through her computer's analysis program, calculating their route and destination. In less than 3 minutes, the strike team would reach a position where they could breach the facility and capture both the students and their research data. Her classmates were completely unaware of the threat approaching from their flank. Her hands trembled as she looked down at Brad's abandoned drone prototype lying just 10 feet away from her position. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "The hardest part isn't taking control, Maya. It's accepting the responsibility of what comes after." She had spent 3 years avoiding this exact moment, choosing theoretical academics over practical applications, documentation over implementation. But now 23 lives hung in the balance, and she was the only person in position to act. "Mom, I'm sorry," she whispered, setting down her monitoring equipment and crawling toward the prototype. Maya lifted the device and connected it to her laptop. Her training kicked in automatically. She calibrated the control systems, overrode the safety protocols, and established a direct connection to the prototype's guidance system. She calculated wind speed by observing debris movement on the canyon floor below, estimated the distance to the approaching Black Hawk at approximately 350 meters, and adjusted for the downward angle of her position. The strike team raised their weapons, preparing to deploy as the helicopter approached a small clearing near the facility. Maya found that natural calm her mother had taught her years ago. Her breathing slowed, her vision tunneled. The weight of the prototype controller felt familiar and terrible in her hands. Everything she had promised her parents, everything she had sworn to herself about never using her mother's military training, everything that had defined her identity for the past 3 years, it all came down to this single moment. The Black Hawk's side door slid open, revealing the strike team ready to deploy. Maya pressed the launch sequence. The drone's engines ignited with a high-pitched whine, sending the prototype streaking toward the approaching helicopter like a guided missile. But instead of striking the aircraft, Maya programmed a different approach. The prototype drone positioned itself directly in the Black Hawk's flight path, forcing the pilot to execute an emergency maneuver to avoid collision. The unexpected obstacle created exactly the confusion the trapped students needed. The Black Hawk veered sharply away from the facility, temporarily breaking the coordinated pattern of the attackers. And in that moment of uncertainty, Professor Caldwell's voice crackled over the emergency system. "Unidentified drone, Northwest Ridge. All students, activate emergency protocols." Within minutes, the university's hidden defense systems activated. Powerful signal jammers that disrupted the Apache gunships' targeting systems and communication networks. Campus security, which had been monitoring the facility remotely, dispatched reinforcements via the emergency tunnel system built beneath the canyon. 7 attack helicopters emblazoned with the university's crest appeared over the horizon, their advanced weapon systems locking onto the unauthorized aircraft. The attackers, suddenly outmatched and facing a coordinated defense they hadn't anticipated, broke formation and retreated into the darkness. 23 students who would have been captured in that canyon lived to see another sunrise. 2 wounded classmates received the medical attention that saved their lives. The prototype technology remained secure. But for Maya sitting alone on that mountain ridge with a smoking laptop and tears streaming down her face, nothing would ever be the same again. When the security forces secured the area and the medical teams evacuated the injured students, Brad Thompson climbed the rocky slope to Maya's position. He found her sitting against a boulder, still holding the prototype controller. Her eyes red with tears she hadn't allowed herself to shed during the crisis. "I never wanted to use these skills," Maya said quietly, not looking up as Brad approached. "My mother trained me since childhood. I could pilot drones before I could drive a car." "You didn't want to," he replied, helping her to her feet. "But you did what needed to be done. That's what makes the difference between a bystander and a hero." The university's head of security, Lieutenant Colonel James Anderson, climbed up behind Brad, carrying the students' personal equipment. "Jackson," he said gently, "the president wants me to give you this." He handed her an official university security badge, one typically reserved for graduate-level research assistants with special clearance. "He said to tell you that because of what you did today, 23 families will be receiving phone calls tonight instead of visits from university officials." Maya clutched the badge, understanding for the first time that sometimes the greatest act of courage requires using the very skills you've been afraid to acknowledge. Her mother would have been proud not of the technical precision, but of the courage to accept responsibility when no one else could. As the team regrouped and prepared for evacuation, Professor Caldwell made a decision that would impact Maya's academic future. To avoid drawing unwanted attention to the freshman scholarship student and to protect her from the inevitable questions about her surprising skills, he ordered that the identity of the drone operator remain classified. Maya's role in saving the research team would not appear in official reports. The story would be recorded as a fortunate system malfunction that had confused the attackers long enough for university security to respond. "I'm sorry, Jackson," Caldwell said privately as they prepared to leave the canyon. "Politics is ugly, but if this gets out, it could create complications for everyone involved. Your quick thinking saved lives today, but officially, this never happened." Maya nodded, understanding the complexity of academic politics and security protocols. She had violated normal student parameters, exceeded her authority, and demonstrated skills that raised uncomfortable questions about her background. Even though she had saved lives, there would be consequences if the truth emerged. However, Maya's computer had been recording throughout the entire engagement, providing undeniable evidence of what had actually transpired on that canyon ridge. The footage showed the tactical situation, the approaching strike team, and the drone maneuver that had disrupted the attack pattern. 3 days after their return to campus, a fellow engineering student named Kevin Zhang was reviewing Maya's data logs for standard intelligence analysis when he discovered the complete sequence of events. He was moved by what he witnessed. The courage of someone who had used skills she had been hiding, forced into a situation where inaction would have meant the capture, or worse, of 23 students. Against protocol, Zhang uploaded a short segment of the data to a secure university network with a simple caption, "Sometimes the scholarship kids save lives too." The data spread rapidly within academic circles before reaching the university's social media channels. It showed the tactical situation, the impossible maneuver, and the aftermath. Though Maya's face was never visible, viewers were captivated by the story of an unlikely hero who had never intended to become one. Media outlets began requesting interviews, but Maya declined them all. Instead, she sent a brief text message to her mother, "I think I'm still your daughter after all." The response came quickly, "You always were, sweetheart. I would be so proud of the woman you've become." Within weeks, letters began arriving at Maya's dormitory, forwarded through official channels from the families of the students she had saved. One particularly moving message came from Chelsea Morgan's parents. "Dear unknown guardian, we don't know your name, and we may never meet you. But we wanted you to know what your actions meant to our family. Because of your courage, our daughter came home safely. Because of your skill, our only child still has her future ahead of her. Because of your sacrifice of anonymity, our family remains whole. Thank you for being exactly where you needed to be, exactly when you needed to be there. Forever grateful, Richard and Catherine Morgan." Maya kept the letter in her backpack next to the security badge she had been given. She continued her studies as a freshman engineering student, but something fundamental had changed within her, and in how her classmates perceived her abilities. During subsequent training exercises, professors began consulting Maya on tactical observations. Her ability to interpret sensor data, predict system failures, and analyze flight patterns became recognized assets that extended far beyond simple theoretical knowledge. The teasing stopped completely. Brad Thompson, after his recovery, approached Maya privately to apologize for the months of ridicule he had directed her way. "I was wrong about you," he said simply. "We all were. I'm sorry for making your life difficult when you were just trying to learn. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you." Maya accepted his apology with grace, understanding that university culture often used harsh exclusion to mask deeper insecurities and fears. Brad and the others hadn't really been mocking her capabilities. They had been expressing their discomfort with having a scholarship student outperform them in their specialized fields. But the internal changes Maya experienced were more complex and troubling. She found herself studying drone schematics during off-duty hours, unconsciously calculating flight paths when reviewing routine homework, and experiencing vivid dreams about that moment on the canyon ridge. The psychological weight of having taken direct action against other human beings, even a non-lethal intervention, created an internal conflict between her chosen identity as a theoretical student and the undeniable reality of her capabilities. Under pressure. During a mandatory counseling session with the university psychologist, Maya struggled to articulate her feelings. "I became an academic student specifically to avoid this situation," she explained. "I promised my parents. I promised myself that I would focus on theory without practical applications. But when the moment came, I didn't hesitate. What does that say about who I really am?" Dr. Samantha Foster listened thoughtfully before responding. "It says you're someone who values life above personal comfort. It says you're willing to bear a burden so others don't have to. That's not something to be ashamed of. It's something to be proud of." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The conversation helped, but Maya continued to grapple with questions about her identity and role within the university structure. She had proven herself capable in a crisis, but she remained officially designated as a freshman scholarship student with no special status or recognition. 6 months after the canyon incident, Maya's world changed again in ways she never anticipated. Dean Victoria Williams, the head of the engineering department, called her into the administrative building for what Maya assumed would be a routine scholarship review. Instead, she found herself in a conference room with several high-ranking university officials she didn't recognize, including a retired general whose credentials indicated extensive military experience and aerospace background. "Ms. Jackson," Dean Williams began, "your performance in the aerospace engineering program has been analyzed by our Academic Advancement Committee. Your theoretical work has been invaluable for improving our understanding of propulsion systems." General Robert Hayes leaned forward. "But we're not here to discuss your academic achievements, Jackson. We're here because of what happened in the canyon. Maya's stomach dropped. Despite Caldwell's assurances that her role would remain classified, someone had clearly pieced together the truth about the incident. "Ma'am, I can explain," Maya began. "No explanation necessary," General Hayes interrupted. "You saved 23 lives with a maneuver that most trained drone operators would consider impossible under those conditions. The question isn't whether you exceeded your authority. It's whether we've been wasting your potential with the wrong curriculum." The general opened a folder containing Maya's complete academic record, including entrance exams, her scholarship application, and psychological evaluations. "Your mother was Dr. Sophia Jackson, one of the finest aerospace engineers I ever worked with," Hayes continued. "She spoke about you often, said you had natural abilities that surpassed even her own at your age. Why didn't you pursue practical aerospace applications when you enrolled?" Maya explained about Olivia's illness and her family situation, the promise she had made to her parents, and her decision to focus on theory to avoid causing additional heartbreak at home. General Hayes nodded thoughtfully. "Admirable loyalty to your family, but circumstances have changed, haven't they? You've already crossed that line, Jackson. The question now is what we do with someone who has proven practical effectiveness, but officially remains a freshman student." Dean Williams spread several documents across the table. "We're prepared to offer you 3 options. First, you can continue in your current academic track with commendation for exceptional service. Your record remains clean, and you maintain your non-specialized status. Second option," General Hayes continued, "voluntary transfer to advanced drone operations, training with a path toward specialized certification. Your family situation would be accommodated through additional scholarship funding that doesn't compromise your financial aid status." Maya stared at the paperwork, her mind racing. "What's the third option, ma'am?" "Special assignment to a new program we're developing," Dean Williams explained. "Engineering students with crisis response capabilities for high-risk research projects. You would still be primarily an academic student, but with additional training and authorization to implement practical solutions when necessary." The room fell silent as Maya processed the implications. Each option represented a different path forward, but all of them acknowledged that her identity had fundamentally changed on that canyon ridge. "Can I have time to consider this, Mom?" 24 hours, General Hayes replied. "But Jackson, let me be clear about something. What you did up there wasn't luck or accident. It was the result of training, instinct, and courage under pressure. Those are rare qualities that shouldn't be wasted." Maya spent that evening walking around campus, trying to sort through her conflicting emotions. She called her parents for the first time since the incident, finally ready to have the conversation she'd been avoiding. "Mom, I need to tell you something about my last assignment." Sophia Jackson listened quietly as Maya described the canyon incident, the attack, and the moment when she took control of the drone. When Maya finished, there was a long silence. "Mija," her mother finally said, "the night before I left active duty for NASA, my commanding officer told me something I never forgot. He said, 'The hardest part about being in aerospace defense isn't the technology. It's knowing that someone has to protect others and accepting that responsibility when the moment comes.'" "Are you disappointed in me?" Maya asked. "Disappointed?" "Maya, you saved 23 families from going through what we went through with Olivia. You did exactly what I would have done." Her father's voice came on the line. "Maya, I'm proud of you for trying to protect us from more heartbreak. But I'm prouder that when lives were on the line, you chose to act. That's what makes a difference in this world." The next morning, Maya returned to the administration building with her decision. She had spent the night reviewing coursework from her various classes, studying the applications of theoretical principles she had been learning, and thinking about the students whose lives had been spared because of split-second decisions made under pressure. "Dean Williams, I'd like to accept the third option," Maya announced. but with one condition. General Hayes raised an eyebrow. You're in no position to negotiate conditions, freshman. With respect, sir, I am. The footage from the canyon incident has already spread throughout the campus. If you want to formalize my role and prevent future complications, you need someone who understands both sides of the situation. Maya opened her laptop and displayed a presentation she had prepared overnight. I've identified 17 instances in the past year where research students were placed in potentially dangerous situations without adequate support or training. The third option you've proposed could prevent casualties if implemented correctly. Dean Williams studied Maya's analysis. You've given this serious thought. Yes, ma'am. I don't want to be just another student who can operate drones. I want to be someone who can apply theoretical knowledge while providing security for other specialists who might find themselves in similar situations. General Hayes smiled for the first time during their meeting. Jackson, you're thinking like an officer. Have you considered joining the ROTC program? One step at a time. Sir, first, let me prove that this new role can work. Within a month, Maya began specialized training that combined her engineering studies with enhanced operations instruction, tactical awareness, and crisis response planning. She would become part of a pilot program designed to address the evolving needs of modern research universities. But more importantly, she had found a way to honor both her family's sacrifices and her own capabilities, creating a path that acknowledged the complex realities of academic life in an uncertain world. Her mother's daughter indeed, but on her own terms. Maya's new training regimen began immediately after her assignment to the pilot program. The Advanced Research and Security Specialist, ARIS program, was housed in a separate facility on Westbridge's West Campus, away from traditional classroom buildings to maintain operational security. Her instructor was Major Rebecca Chun, a former Air Force tactical specialist with extensive drone operations experience, who had transitioned to academic roles after developing innovative countermeasures against unauthorized surveillance. Chun understood the unique challenges of combining theoretical knowledge with practical security responsibilities. Jackson, Chun announced during Maya's first day, forget everything you think you know about being an engineering student. This program requires you to think like a defender first, engineer second. The training was intensive and comprehensive. Maya spent mornings on advanced aerospace systems, afternoons on drone operations and counter-surveillance techniques, and evenings analyzing security footage to identify threats and vulnerabilities that standard security personnel might miss. The psychological component proved most challenging. Maya worked with Dr. Jennifer Martinez, a university psychologist specializing in crisis response and decision-making under pressure. The canyon incident changed your neural pathways, Dr. Martinez explained during one of their sessions. You've experienced what we call critical incident adaptation. Your nervous system has rewired itself to function under life-threatening conditions. We need to help you manage that effectively. Maya learned techniques for controlling stress responses, making rapid threat assessments, and maintaining emotional stability while transitioning between academic and security roles. The training addressed the reality that future assignments would require her to switch instantly between student and protector. 3 months into the program, Maya received her first field test. A joint research initiative with international universities required coordination of sensitive aerospace technologies, but intelligence suggested potential security threats from industrial espionage groups interested in the proprietary research. Maya deployed with a mixed team of American and international students, carrying both her advanced research equipment and a specialized drone controller, fitted with enhanced security protocols. Her mission was to assist with the research while providing overwatch security for other engineering personnel. On the second day of the initiative, Maya's training proved its value. While analyzing propulsion efficiency data during a coordination meeting between American and international research teams, her peripheral vision caught an electromagnetic anomaly that shouldn't have been present. Instead of simply reporting the observation, Maya was now authorized to take immediate action. She smoothly transitioned from data analysis to security protocols, using her equipment to identify two signal sources positioning what appeared to be data extraction devices of their own. "Security Command, this is Research Team 7, Maya reported calmly. "I have confirmed signals from potential infiltration team, North Quadrant, 2nd floor, East window." Her monitoring provided real-time intelligence while her drone operations skills covered the evacuation of the meeting area. The suspected espionage team retreated when they realized they had been detected, confirming that Maya's hybrid role could prevent incidents before they escalated. Professor Caldwell, who had been observing the initiative, approached Maya afterward. "Jackson, that was textbook execution. You identified the threat, maintained research integrity, and provided security without escalating unnecessarily. This is exactly what the program was designed to accomplish." Word of Maya's performance spread quickly through academic channels. Other universities began requesting information about the ARS program, and Maya found herself becoming an unofficial spokesperson for the concept. During a presentation to university administrators, Maya explained the practical advantages of her hybrid role. "Traditional research students are valuable but vulnerable. Traditional security personnel can protect them, but can't understand the technical implications of what they're protecting. The ARS program creates personnel who can do both jobs simultaneously, reducing staffing requirements while increasing mission effectiveness." General Hayes, who had championed Maya's assignment to the program, nodded approvingly. "Jackson represents the future of university research security. She's proven that we can maintain our academic standards while adapting to evolving security realities." But Maya's success also created unexpected challenges. Some traditional students felt threatened by the implications that their roles were insufficient. Some security personnel questioned whether adding academic responsibilities would compromise their protection effectiveness. The resistance came to a head during a heated meeting with university leadership. Director Jonathan Phillips, who supervised traditional campus security, voiced concerns that reflected broader institutional skepticism. "With all due respect, General," Phillips said during the briefing, "Jackson's situation was unique. We can't expect every student to handle security protocols, and we shouldn't ask our security personnel to worry about research data when lives are on the line." Maya stood to respond, her voice steady but firm. Director Phillips, respectfully, "That's exactly the outdated thinking this program addresses. The Canyon incident wasn't unique, it was inevitable. Our students are engaged in increasingly sensitive research, where the line between academic and security concerns doesn't exist." She activated a presentation showing statistics she had compiled over the past 6 months. 17 research projects have been compromised or targeted in situations where hybrid training could have prevented intrusions. "We're not asking everyone to become security specialists. We're asking them to become capable of protecting their research while continuing their academic missions under threat." The room fell silent as Maya's data spoke for itself. Her research had identified a clear pattern of university projects being placed in vulnerable positions without adequate preparation for security threats. Dean Williams leaned forward. "Jackson, what you're proposing would require a fundamental restructuring of how we train and deploy research teams." "Yes, ma'am, it would. But the alternative is continuing to lose proprietary technology that could have been secured with proper preparation." General Hayes studied the presentation materials. "Jackson, I want you to develop a comprehensive proposal for expanding the ARS program. Include training requirements, student selection criteria, and implementation protocols. We'll present it to the Board of Trustees for consideration." Maya's assignment had evolved from personal redemption to institutional innovation. She was no longer just a student who had saved her team. She was an architect of change within the university structure. Over the following weeks, Maya worked 18-hour days developing the expansion proposal. She consulted with security experts, reviewed international research protocols, and analyzed incident reports from multiple universities to identify best practices. Her proposal recommended a 3-tier system: basic security awareness for all research students, intermediate tactical training for specialists working on sensitive projects, advanced ARIS qualification for personnel assigned to high-value research initiatives. The psychological evaluation component drew heavily from Dr. Martinez's work, with Maya addressing the mental health considerations of students who might transition between academic and security roles. The key insight, Maya wrote in her summary, is that university research has evolved beyond simple academic pursuit. Modern technological development requires personnel who can adapt to changing security situations while maintaining their primary mission focus. When Maya submitted her proposal, she included a personal reflection that surprised even herself. 6 months ago, I believed my role was to study and learn without participating in practical applications. That canyon changed my understanding of education. Sometimes direct action is the only way to ensure there's something left to study. The ARS program doesn't create security personnel who can understand research. It creates complete academic professionals who happen to specialize in security integration. 3 weeks before Maya's proposal was scheduled for board review, a crisis at a neighboring university provided an unexpected testing ground for her theories. Intelligence indicated that a sophisticated cyber intrusion was targeting aerospace. Research across multiple institutions, requiring immediate countermeasures to protect proprietary technology. The situation would require a joint response team to address vulnerabilities while maintaining research continuity. Traditional protocol would have sent separate IT security and research preservation teams, but resource constraints and the urgent timeline made Maya's hybrid approach an attractive option. General Hayes personally briefed Maya on the assignment. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Jackson, this isn't just a field test of your program. It's a proof of concept that could determine the future of university research security nationwide. No pressure. Maya smiled grimly. Understood, sir. When do we deploy? 48 hours. You'll be leading a team of 3 other specialists who have completed abbreviated ARIS training based on your protocols. The team included Kevin Zhang, the engineering student who had originally shared Maya's Canyon footage, Jennifer Walsh, a cybersecurity specialist with extensive digital forensics experience, and Michael Torres, a former military technician transitioning to academic research work. During their pre-deployment briefing, Maya addressed the unique nature of their mission. We're not just securing systems. We're proving that this hybrid approach can work under real-world conditions. Every decision we make, every vulnerability we identify, every research asset we protect will be analyzed for lessons learned. The deployment location was a research complex at Lakeside Technical University, where multiple high-value aerospace projects were underway. Intelligence suggested that sophisticated hackers were attempting to extract proprietary drone propulsion data while creating backdoors into connected research networks at partner institutions like Westbridge. Maya's team was tasked with identifying these intrusions without compromising ongoing research or alerting the attackers to their detection. It was exactly the type of complex, technically challenging mission that traditional security teams struggled to handle effectively without disrupting academic work. Maya handed Brad his graduation certificate and the distinctive ARIS insignia that symbolized dual proficiency in research and security operations. Thompson, you were judging based on old paradigms that separated academic achievement from practical application. The world doesn't work that way anymore. You're part of something new now, something that recognizes both are equally valuable. That night, Maya visited her sister's memorial at the campus meditation garden, which had remained a place of reflection since Olivia's death. The small plaque commemorating Olivia's dream of medical research had been joined by a new installation, the Sophia Jackson Memorial Research Security Initiative, funded by contributions from the students and families Maya had helped protect. She placed her program certification on the bench beside a photograph of her sister. "Live," Maya said. Aloud to the quiet garden, "I think I finally figured out how to honor your memory while becoming my own person." Sophia Jackson approached the garden bench, having accompanied her daughter to campus for the graduation ceremony. "Maya, you figured that out the day you took control of that drone to protect your classmates. Everything since then has just been you learning to accept who you've always been." Maya turned to face her mother, understanding finally that her journey had never been about choosing between being an academic or a protector, between following her mother's path or creating her own. "I'm still afraid sometimes," Maya admitted. "Afraid that I'll make the wrong decision under pressure. Afraid that someone's research or safety will be compromised because I hesitated or acted too quickly." "Good," Sophia replied. "Fear keeps you innovative. It's when you stop being afraid that you stop growing." Maya's story had become something larger than personal redemption or family legacy. The ARS program was being implemented nationally, with research institutions across the country sending students to train under Maya's protocols. Academic security had evolved, and Maya had been instrumental in defining what that evolution looked like. But for Maya herself, the most important moment came during a quiet evening at Westbridge, when she received a message from Kevin Jang, her teammate from the Lakeside operation. "Maya, thought you'd want to know. The research we protected at Lakeside just received breakthrough status from the Department of Energy. The propulsion efficiency algorithms you helped save are being implemented in the next generation of climate monitoring drones. I've been thinking about that day at the computer lab, and I realized something. You didn't save just one research project that day. You saved all the innovations that will build upon it for decades to come. The propulsion system alone will enable atmospheric monitoring that could help address climate change. The ripple effect of what you did that day is still spreading. Thank you for being exactly who you needed to be when we needed you most." Maya printed John's message and placed it in her backpack next to the security badge she had been given years earlier and the letter from Chelsea Morgan's parents. These mementos reminded her that sometimes the most important actions aren't recognized in the moment. They're the ones that ensure there will be more discoveries to make, more innovations to create, and more knowledge to protect. The freshman, who had dreamed of following her mother's path, had ultimately created her own, building a legacy that honored both her family's tradition of excellence and her personal commitment to protecting others. Maya Jackson had become exactly what the modern academic world needed: a scholar who secured innovation, a protector who advanced discovery, and a leader who understood that sometimes the greatest act of courage is being prepared to do whatever needs to be done, whether or not anyone will ever know you did it. In the end, Maya's story wasn't about choosing between theory and practice, between observation and action, between family expectations and personal identity. It was about understanding that true innovation sometimes requires being ready to be everything at once and having the courage to accept that responsibility when the moment demands it. The president of Westbridge University, Dr. Elizabeth Chen, approached Maya after the graduation ceremony, offering her hand in congratulation. "Ms. Jackson, I wanted to personally thank you for what you've created here. When you first arrived as a freshman on scholarship, I doubt anyone could have predicted you would transform our entire approach to research security." Maya smiled, thinking of her first days on campus when she'd felt so out of place. "Honestly, Dr. Chun, I came to Westbridge hoping to hide in theoretical studies. Life had other plans. That's often how the most important innovations happen, Dr. Chun replied. We plan one path, but circumstances reveal another that's more needed. The measure of excellence isn't avoiding disruption. It's how we respond when disruption finds. U.S. As Maya walked across the campus quad that evening, she passed groups of students studying under trees and on benches, ordinary students pursuing knowledge without any awareness of the security infrastructure now protecting their work. That was exactly how it should be. Academic freedom flourished best when it was invisibly secured against those who would exploit or steal it. Maya's program ensured that the next generation of researchers could focus on discovery without constantly looking over their shoulders. At the campus gate, Maya paused to look back at the university that had transformed from a place where she felt unwelcome to the birthplace of her legacy. The Apache gunships that had once surrounded her dorm had become the catalyst for a program that would protect research at institutions across the country. Sometimes the most frightening moments of our lives become the foundations of our greatest contributions. Maya had learned that lesson in the most dramatic way possible, and now she was teaching it to others who would carry the mission forward. As she turned to leave, Maya noticed a young woman sitting alone on a bench, poring over textbooks with the unmistakable focus of a scholarship student trying to prove herself worthy. Maya recognized that determination, had lived it herself not so long ago. "Excuse me," Maya said, approaching the student. "You're in the aerospace program, aren't you? I noticed the fluid dynamics textbook." The young woman looked up, surprised to be addressed by someone she didn't know. "Yes, I'm Jasmine, first-year scholarship student." Maya smiled. "I'm Maya Jackson. I was in your position not long ago." Recognition dawned in Jasmine's eyes. "Wait, you're the one who created the ARIS program? The one who saved those students in the canyon? That's me. Listen, there's an information session tomorrow about a special training opportunity for students with your background. You might want to consider it." "Me?" Jasmine looked doubtful. "But I'm just a freshman." Maya's smile broadened. "So was I when Apache gunships surrounded my dorm. Sometimes being just a freshman is exactly what qualifies you to see things differently. The most important innovations often come from those who don't yet know what's supposed to be impossible." As Maya walked away, leaving a bewildered but intrigued Jasmine behind, she felt the cycle beginning again. Another student with potential would have the opportunity to integrate her academic passion with practical application, creating something new that Maya herself couldn't yet imagine. That was the true purpose of education, not just to pass on what was already known, but to empower the next generation to create what had never existed before. Maya had transformed from student to innovator to mentor, completing a circle that would continue long after her own contributions had become part of history. The helicopter sounds that had once terrified her now represented not danger, but possibility, the possibility of rising above limitations, of seeing challenges from a new perspective, and of protecting the precious work of discovery that moved humanity forward. Maya Jackson had arrived at Westbridge as just a freshman. She would leave as a legend. But more importantly, she would leave behind a legacy that would continue to grow and evolve through the students she inspired. Ordinary people who, when faced with extraordinary circumstances, would find within themselves the courage to be exactly who they needed to be, exactly when they needed to be it. 5 years after the establishment of the ARIS program, Maya Jackson found herself standing in a very different position than she ever imagined. Now a graduate student at Westbridge's Advanced Aerospace Engineering program, she had been invited to speak at the International Conference on Research Security in Geneva, Switzerland. The program she had created as a sophomore had expanded to over 50 universities worldwide and had prevented countless security breaches. The Grand Conference Hall overlooked Lake Geneva, its floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting the morning sunlight. Security personnel discreetly patrolled the perimeter, many of them graduates of programs inspired by Maya's original model. As she prepared her presentation materials, a familiar face approached. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Ms. Jackson, General Hayes said, extending his hand. It's been a while. The frightened freshman who had once hidden her capabilities had become the architect of a new approach to securing human knowledge. The scholarship student who had been mocked by her peers had transformed academic security protocols worldwide. The daughter who had tried to protect her family by limiting her potential was now being asked to help protect innovation on a global scale. That evening, Maya stood on the balcony of her hotel room overlooking Lake Geneva, reflecting on the unexpected turns her life had taken since that day in the canyon. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jasmine, the once uncertain freshman who had now become one of the ARS program's most effective trainers. Just heard the news about the national initiative. If anyone had told that scholarship freshman you approached on the bench 5 years ago that she'd be helping implement your security protocols at NASA someday, I would have laughed in their face. Thank you for seeing potential in me that I couldn't see myself. Maya smiled, remembering her own transformation from just a freshman to someone capable of making a difference. As she prepared to respond, another message arrived, this one from Brad Thompson, now leading the Aerospace Engineering Department Security Division at a major research university. Jackson, remember when I said the scholarship kid didn't belong in advanced programs? Still eating those words daily. The security protocols you developed just prevented a major breach at our quantum propulsion lab. Some of us take longer to learn what you knew from the beginning. It's not where you start that matters, but what you do when challenge finds you. As Maya prepared for bed, her thoughts turned to Olivia, the sister whose illness had altered Maya's life path so dramatically. What would Olivia think of the security initiative that had grown from Maya's decision to attend Westbridge instead of the Air Force Academy? Would she recognize that her own suffering had, in some cosmic accounting, led to innovations that now protected research that might prevent similar suffering for countless others? Maya had long ago stopped trying to make sense of the tragic circumstances that had shaped her family. Instead, she had focused on creating meaning from those circumstances, finding purpose in the unexpected detours and challenges that life had placed in her path. The next morning, as Maya prepared to join a working group to begin designing the National Research Security Initiative, she received one final message, this one from her father. Maya, your mother told me about the meeting with General Williams. I remember the day you decided to give up your dream of following in her footsteps because of what happened to Olivia. I worried then that you were sacrificing too much of yourself. I see now that you weren't abandoning your path. You were finding a different one that only you could walk. Sometimes the greatest act of courage is letting life reshape your dreams into something you couldn't have imagined. So proud of you, sweetheart. Maya tucked her phone away, squared her shoulders, and headed into the meeting room where representatives from 12 countries waited to help craft a new framework for securing human innovation. The scholarship freshman who had once been dismissed as just a camera girl had found her voice and her purpose. As she took her seat at the head of the table, Maya reflected on the strange journey that had brought her here. The Apache gunships that had once threatened everything she valued had become the catalyst for her greatest contribution. The crisis that might have destroyed her had instead revealed capabilities she had hidden even from herself. Good morning, Maya began, addressing the assembled experts. Today we begin designing not just a security protocol, but a new understanding of how innovation and protection must evolve together in the modern world. As discussion flowed around the table, Maya found herself thinking of all the students who would never know her name, but whose research would flourish under the protective framework she was helping to create. She thought of the innovations that would change lives because they had been shielded from theft or exploitation. She thought of the freshman students somewhere in the world right now, who harbored hidden capabilities waiting for the right moment to emerge. 10 years from the day Apache gunships had surrounded her dormitory, Sophia Jackson stood at the podium of the United Nations General Assembly, presenting the final framework for the Global Research Security Initiative. Representatives from 193 countries listened as she outlined the integrated approach that had grown from her desperate improvisation in a canyon to a comprehensive international agreement on protecting human innovation. Distinguished delegates, Maya concluded, what began as a freshman student's response to an immediate threat has evolved into something much more profound. We have created not merely a security protocol, but a new understanding of how knowledge itself must be both shared and protected in our interconnected world. The greatest lesson I have learned on this journey is that none of us are just anything, not just students, not just researchers, not just security specialists. We are all potential guardians of human progress, capable of rising to challenges we never anticipated facing. This initiative belongs not to me, nor to any single nation, but to all who believe that human innovation deserves protection from those who would exploit or suppress it. Together, we have created a framework that will allow brilliant minds to focus on discovery rather than defense, on creation rather than protection. And in doing so, we honor not just the knowledge of today, but the undiscovered breakthroughs of tomorrow, the cures, the technologies, the insights that will emerge because someone, somewhere, was free to pursue their ideas without fear. As applause filled the General Assembly Hall, Maya thought of the frightened freshman who had once believed that hiding her capabilities was the safest path. How could that girl have known that embracing those capabilities would not only save her classmates but launch a global transformation in how human knowledge is secured? Sometimes the greatest contributions come not from following a predetermined path, but from responding with courage and integrity to the unexpected challenges life places before us. Sometimes being just a freshman is exactly the perspective needed to see possibilities that others have overlooked. And sometimes, the moments that seem most likely to destroy us become instead the foundation upon which we build our most meaningful contributions to the world. As Maya left the podium, she caught sight of her mother and father in the diplomatic gallery, their faces reflecting pride not just in what she had accomplished, but in who she had become. The path that had begun in fear and uncertainty had led to purpose and impact beyond anything she could have imagined. The Apache gunships that had once surrounded her dormitory had become not the end of her story, but its true beginning, the catalyst that transformed the scholarship freshman into a global innovator whose legacy would protect discovery for generations to come. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.